Bylaws communications.
Meeting of council for Monday, May the 30th is called to order. On adoption of the agenda, I have an amendment to the agenda to include a late item from the Chief Financial Officer with regard to the financial plan update. So may I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda for Monday, May the 30th? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ross, all in favor? So carried. Moving on to the minutes, may I have a motion to adopt the May 9th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented? May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Ross, all in favor? So carried. Also, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes of May the 9th, the special meeting to go in camera as presented? May I have a mover, please? Councillor Hammond, Councillor Frog, all in favor? So carried. Again, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes of May 9th, the regular meeting minutes as presented? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammond, all in favor? So carried. Now, last but not least, may I have a motion to adopt the May 19th special meeting to go in camera minutes as presented? Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson, all in favor? So carried. Okay. May I have a motion to adopt all the written reports of council to be received? Councillor Ross, Councillor Butler, all in favor? No discussion on the received minutes reports.
Sorry? No discussion?
No.
On the councillors' reports?
They're normally just to be received.
Well, I have questions within my report. We always have discussion on the report.
I'd like to discuss.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So within my report, I have basically two issues that I was addressing this week. One, at the Rec Commission level, I'm sitting as the representative of Council's Recreation and Culture Committee, and that's what's on their books. And of course, we don't have a Recreation and Culture Committee at the moment, but the Rec Commission was hoping that Council might consider reestablishing that committee, as the Rec Commission's mandate is only to deal, funding-wise, is to deal with the arena and the pool, the aquatic center. So there's a lot of really active members of that committee that would like to expand programming within our region and within our city for different types of recreational programs. And because it's not in our mandate, we don't really have the leeway to go and do that. There's been lots of great ideas come to the table, and we haven't been able to forward those in any way. And there's kind of a bit of confusion on who's supposed to take that on. Is it Miss Winton here at the city that people are to go to? Some things are dealt with through the rec center, but right now the Rec Commission is just asking if council maybe would consider having a Recreation and Culture Committee of Council and having some of the members from the Rec Commission sit on that committee to help with increased programming within our city. The other issue that I was dealing with here was a notice of motion that I brought forward at the last meeting for looking at different types of ways of dealing with the sludge in our sewer ponds that do need to be taken care of here quite shortly. We've had some discussion on that with council of using different methods that are quite costly and not necessarily environmentally friendly. And I have talked with Mr. Watt on staff here about some methods that he would like to check out, and I've had some ideas come to me that I'd like to look into. So I did forward that information, some information to council, and at the next meeting I'll be bringing forward that motion. Thank you.
To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
With respect to the discussion with Mr. Watt, Mr. Watt is he reports to a manager in the organization, so I would like to make sure that communication would be going through myself and the managers on that situation to make sure that it's meeting the interests of council. So not to dissuade the council from doing that, but under the one employee policy, it would be best to have the question brought through to me, to the staff member.
Yeah, and first through the mayor and then
Exactly.
Yeah, proper policy procedure.
That was a discussion that came up at the Public Works yard when we were interacting on a friendly basis during the Public Works open house that was held downtown, and it was just part of our conversation that came up. And of course, that would always go through the CAO on that level. That's why I was hoping that a committee could be established with council and staff so that we could have these open discussions.
As I had mentioned last time, I'm not in favor of forming any committees when they're not necessary on issues like this, because we have competent staff to take care of these issues. As you had mentioned, Mr. Watts and other staff members that could take care of this. We don't need councillors directly involved in these type of issues. Councillor Hammond.
Yes, I just wanted to say that the reason, you'll notice we're all wearing GFI t-shirts. So we're all in support of the GFI, and what I'm doing is I'm selling GFI t-shirts to store managers and owners for their staff at cost, to try and get the whole community psyched up and revved up for the GFI, just to make sure that nobody can go anywhere in this town without being reminded that this event is happening. It brings in a lot of money to this community that will circulate around. It may take a little while before you see some of it, but it will stay in this community. So if I don't get to you as a business owner or manager by the end of next week, please feel free. If you know you'd like to order any, contact me, chammett@grandforks.ca. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond.
Thanks.
May I have a motion to receive, all in favor of receiving the written reports? So carried. Moving on now to the report from the RDKB rep, which would be myself. I've got numerous reports here from different meetings. I'll try to encapsulate them as quickly as possible. The May 11th Committee of the Whole, or COW as the RDKB calls it, in Trail. There was discussion on older action items, financial discussions, appointing the CIBC as their financial institution, and further ongoing discussion on the closure of the reuse centers, which had a few controversial comments on it. And one of them was from Director G, which advised that Grand Forks Whispers of Hope have indicated a willingness to work with the RDKB and other discussions of that nature. Then the other discussion was on the BCU OMA, which is the BC Used Oil Management Association. The courses, the closures of the used oil drop-off sites in Beaverdale and other places. It's another issue that we are sending letters of request for the provincial government to look into. Also, there was discussion on the emergency disaster planning training session, which will be happening on June the 15th at the Committee of the Whole meeting. It's a 2-hour training session, and there's more info to come, and all of council and any staff members that are willing to go are highly welcomed and advised that it would be a good training session to go to. It's in Trail, fortunately. Discussion for future agendas, the reestablishing of the RDKB recycling calendar booklet with info, contacts, where the public can go instead of the reuse centers. That's all we have on that one. Then on May 25th, there was the ALC meeting at the RDKB boundary in Grand Forks. Jeff Janalius was there on the Agricultural Land Commission. And basically there were a couple of topic matters. The Kootenai panel was present, by the way, from the ALC. Discussions were on new policies, new regulations, new fees, directions and suggestions that local governments should use in drafting land use bylaws, and different enforcement tools. I won't get into it, it's too long, but they have a website for that. Then on May 26th, we had the Rural Dividend Fund, again at the RDKB boardroom in Grand Forks. David Bork, the Minister of Forest, Land and Natural Resource Operations, was present. We had a couple of our councillors present, and the discussions were how the program works. He will be presenting information, answering questions, and basically it assists the rural communities with populations of 25,000 or less. The program provides $25 million a year over 3 years, beginning in 2016, to help the rural communities across BC reinvigorate and diversify their local economies, making them more attractive places to live and work. And again, that's on a website which can easily be accessed. It was an excellent PowerPoint presentation. On May 26th, I attended the Woodlot Tour in Westbridge, and there, to my pleasant surprise, I found out what good quality forestry management policies, how they work. We had two brothers, Dan and Bob, that had their own woodlot, and they showed us to what a proper management of logging, how it's done. They still do it with the old chainsaw and sling methods rather than coming in with big equipment and clear cutting everything. George DeLille was present, and he was gracious enough to give me this book on forest. I will pass it around to council members to have a look at it. Very, very interesting book. A lot of comments on that tour. Unfortunately, we won't have the time to read them all, but there's one individual, Tyler was his name, he has his own little mill, and he, again, exemplified and displayed what small, compact wood lot owners can do with their clearing. So, and then of course we had George was gracious enough to have supper for all the directors. We had a board meeting in Westridge, but that will be too extensive for this evening, so I'm going to pass on that one. I'll get it at the next meeting because I'm sure you've heard enough. So all in favor to receive the RDKB report as presented? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammett,
Question?
Councillor Ross. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just wondering, why did the RDKB choose the CIBC as their banking institution rather than supporting local credit unions?
I wish I could answer that one. They gave no real reason for it. I'm sorry. I wish I could love it. To our CEO.
Typically, just like the city will undertake in the short future, will be a call for proposals for the banking funds for the city. Because if we keep $3 to $5 million in our bank account, it's to that institution's benefit. So to offer up better rates in respect to that fund, those funds. So we'll be asking council at the end of this year to appoint your banking services. It is a challenging time because those banks are all competing for your services. So it is a big service.
Yeah. In this particular case, there was no real reason given.
They voted on it though, right?
Yes.
It wasn't unanimous, I expect.
Okay. Any other questions? I think we already voted. All in favor? So carried. All right, now moving on to recommendations from staff. The subject matter is a contracted bylaw office enforcement officer. Recommendation is council to receive the report and considers approving the contracted bylaw services seasonal position for 2016. And further, that council amends the 2016 financial plan in the amount of $28,000 funded through surplus. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Krog, Councillor Thompson. Discussion, Councillor Hammett.
Just curious, because we're asking for, to amend the financial plan in the amount of $28,000 for 2016, yet the plan for this is to hire somebody from May through to October. So I'm just wondering if to 2017, when we hire that person in May, will that $28,000 amount be different?
To our CEO.
Mr. Merritt, the staff will bring that forward in the budget discussions. This would be for part of the 2017 budget discussion in a preliminary discussion. We've just had so many complaints regarding the unsightly premises moving into this year that, so I don't know what it would be depending on the length and the amount of and the effectiveness of this. Council might suggest they would like to have it longer or shorter during those budget discussions.
No, I understand the need for it. It's just that we're asking for $28,000, but we're not going to be doing anything because we've already gone through May. But in here, the background, it asks for from May through to October. So I'm just wondering if that $28,000 covers May through October, or whether it will, whether this year's will be less because it won't be May through October.
To our manager of building.
Yes, Mayor Conrad, that $28,000 was for the 5-month period.
For 5 months.
Yeah, so if we didn't bring somebody until July and went to October, it would be substantially reduced for this year.
Okay, so next year it will be
That
increased.
would be the amount for the 5-month peak season period.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. I speak in support of this motion. In addition to the unsightly premises, we're seeing the water sprinkling regulations being abused as well. And so we need somebody to control that. So I really think it's a position that we need to have filled.
Yeah.
Before Councillor Butler speaks, I just want to let everybody know we do have a PowerPoint presentation of pictures of some of the unsightly premises for those that are interested. Councillor Butler, go ahead.
Yeah, I was also looking at the timeline for this being mid-May to mid-October, and if we did hire someone mid-June and spent that $28,000, it would work out to $41 an hour. So I'm hoping it would be substantially reduced. And I'm just wondering if hiring a couple summer students to go around as water ambassadors, educating people, could be a lot more cost-effective. This is quite a large chunk of money to be spending, considering we've just had quite a large tax increase, and the public is already having to swallow a bit more on their taxes. I really don't want to see our budget increasing any more than it already has. As well, with the increase in fees at the dump, to clean up a premises like this after a tax bill, I don't know if these people can afford to dump all of this all at once. And I think maybe a more friendly approach with ambassadors going around and talking with people to see what their needs are might be a better way of going about this, and also save the taxpayers some money with some summer students rather than one person at $28,000.
Councillor Hammett and then Councillor Crogg.
Yeah, I have some concerns. I understand we need a person that's going to play an ambassador role, because they're going to have to deal with people quite diplomatically and tactfully, and they're going to have some abuse thrown at them, I'm sure. And in some cases, there might be some mental health issues as well when it comes to unsightly premises. I don't feel comfortable sending students in to deal with situations like this, because we know how bad things can turn. So I think we need somebody, and I mean, I certainly would be reluctant to go and approach somebody to clean up what I deem to be unsightly, what they think is their treasure. So it's a really touchy situation, but I really wouldn't put a student in that position.
That would have been my comment too, Councillor Hammett. I agree with you. Councillor Crogg.
Yeah, I have always liked the concept of students as water ambassadors, but not as any kind of bylaw enforcement, like as an educational tool for them to go and help the public understand the water, and that's one thing. But when you're showing up to tell somebody that they need to stop or they're going to get fined, that type of thing, and I know what the answer is, but I'll go through you and ask if it's possible for Mr. Copan to comment on the concept of an actual bylaw officer adult as opposed to students. In other words, I think it has to do with what Councillor Hammett was saying. There can be some pretty sketchy situations.
There's a difference, I feel, as far as public awareness and actual enforcement. Those are two different areas, and I think it speaks for itself that a student probably would not have the capabilities, but I won't speak for Mr. Copan. He's got more experience on that.
Yes, Mayor Conrad, you're absolutely correct. You can approach a certain number of people, excuse me, that will become compliant once they realize what they're doing. But when we start getting into these unsightly situations, a lot of them, one, Julia's correct, or Ms. Butler, I'm sorry, Councillor Butler, that, yeah, it is costly, but it's also unfair to the neighbors that live beside this mess, because they pay taxes equally the same, and they have to put up with this all the time. So we make every effort to work with them, talk to them, deal with them. This one particular one right here, I've been on it for about 18 months now. I have issued 4 fines. The guy's paid the fines. He does about a week's worth of cleanup, and then he stops again. So I just got to keep going back. And it's continuous.
And even on the watering, there could also be belligerent citizens.
We do have some pushback on the watering, but as a rule, most of them are pretty good. A lot of them will try to sneak it behind your back when they think you drive away and you come around the block.
And of course, the intimidation factor would be a lot stronger on a student rather than actual law enforcement officer. Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Butler again.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I don't think anyone of council wants to increase budgets unnecessarily, but this particular issue, and if you read Mr. Copan's memorandum. Dealing with these kinds of issues also corresponds with dealing with the busy building permit issues, and he can't be all things to all people. And so I think in order to adequately address the concerns as it relates to bylaw enforcement, we need to contract with somebody on a temporary basis.
And may I just quickly cap on what Councillor Butler had mentioned about taxpayers? Well, a lot of the concerns I get addressed to me is we do pay taxes, how come we don't have the place cleaned up? So it's kind of a cat chasing its tail. Councillor Butler.
Right, so yeah, my suggestion was for water ambassadors, not for bouncers. I wouldn't send a student out to do that job either.
Absolutely true.
Couple questions that I have. Number one, does this person have to have a bylaw enforcement certificate to be hired for this job? Number two, I'm curious how much we're spending on building and bylaw enforcement already, and if that's comparable with other towns of our size. Number three, it is a small town, and taking a bit of the workload off of Mr. Copan with water ambassadors, I think in a small area like this, it is reasonable to expect somebody to get out and around town to these different premises. You're not having to drive 20 minutes to get somewhere to do these different jobs. So I know that it is a heavy workload, but we are also paying a good price for this position.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer those questions if you like.
To our CEO.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Mr. Copan's wage is part of the Sophie statements.
Which I wasn't able to download off the city website, it wouldn't open.
He's under contract at this point in time. There's going to be a change. We're just going to be going out and hiring a new person because Mr. Copan is retiring this year after 29 years.
33.
Sorry, 33 years of service. 33 years of service, I believe the job that Mr. Copan does with building inspection, bylaw enforcement, building supervision, and CAREP reporting under our requirements, and then 15 other titles that I asked him to undertake for the organization. I believe the wage is in the neighborhood of $92,000 a year, $93,000. The amount of that's requested upon him, the new position won't be paid that much. Mr. Copan's been with us for a long period of time and had an existing contract. We won't go into those details, but the amount of services we get for that is very, very good for a small community. We took over the building inspection services from the regional district, which was in over $100,000 a year for us to take those services on. And Mr. Copan was providing another service which we saved the money on with Mr. Copan bringing in the revenue for our organization, and we eliminated a management job by us taking over those responsibilities. So our organization's in a better position as that, and it also helps us from an economic development perspective because we have a lot more control over what's said to our constituents when they're going through the building inspection process. We've actually asked Mr. Copan to be an ambassador for our services. So we're very fortunate to have that. And as far as the community size, it varies from community to community based on the services that their councils want to provide. So that's what we have today.
And did they have to have a certificate?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, in respect to the certificate, the first and foremost is going to be a tactful approach. We would definitely encourage the ability for them to have the bylaw certification, but working under the new building inspector bylaw enforcement officer, we would ask them to work under that certification if the person has it. If not, we'd be encouraging that. There's not always the case. Like, say, for instance, the commissionaires, they are somebody that performs these duties as well, and they might not have certification. So at this point in time, with the shortage of qualified people in the industry, we have to take the best employees we can get for our organization.
And if I may just echo what Mr. Allen had stated regards to the small community size of it, every community does not necessarily mean we don't have a lot of violations based on the size of the community. Some could have more, some could have less. And also, if you do your research on different municipalities, there's not too many staff members that do as much multitasking as we do in our city. And Mr. Copan should be commended for that.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Just one final comment from me, and that is with the contract, we would have weekend coverage, and that's when a lot of the violations, I do believe, occur. So that would be an advantage to us as well.
Councillor Butler.
I think Councillor Hammond was first.
I was-
Councillor Hammond and Councillor Butler, and then I'm going to close the discussions on this.
Yeah, my comment was only that I didn't think that the population size correlated to the amount of offenders. So the size of the community, I think, you'd think that it would be balanced, but, you know, you may find a difference in community to
Has no
community. So
relevance,
if we have
exactly.
more offenders than others.
Councillor Butler?
Yeah, my only other comment was value for money. We're spending $28,000. Are we going to be recouping $28,000 in electrical costs for our wells having to pump out that extra water? I don't think we're going to get that much back. Yeah, we might send out some more notices, but as Mr. Copan said, 18 months, and he still hasn't been able to get someone to clean up their properties. So I don't know if the taxpayer is going to see a good return on this $28,000 investment.
This will be the last one.
Okay. With regards to hiring the bylaw enforcement officer, I'm more concerned about the unsightly premise issue than the lawn sprinkling issue. I know that is an issue, but I think this is a bigger one because this affects people's property values. When it's your next door neighbor or if it's in your community, your house value goes down and that impacts the whole community as a whole. It affects Grand Forks as a whole. And so I think this is the really important part of this whole hiring process is to have somebody that can go back. And I know, Mr. Copan, you've gone back 4 or 5, half a dozen times to the same offender just to keep following up. And I know you have development permits that you're working on and plans that you're working on with other things that we need somebody else to pick up some of that.
Yeah, and if I may, Mayor, just to give you an example of last week, when I was going back to visit this guy again, last week I had 7 building permits come in, which I got to get out the door. And then on top of that, I had 2 property disputes, a fence that was on somebody else's property that they thought they owned, 2 camps on the river, an RV up on the West Kootenai Reservoir site, and that was just last week.
Yeah.
And in between that, we're trying to deal with this. And the reason a lot of these extend so long is because I don't have the time to get back there in a timely fashion. And they go, oh, they don't care, they didn't come back to see me. It's not that you didn't come back, you just didn't have the time to do it. So that's where the problems come from.
Exactly, and also one of the main reasons that precipitated this hiring of a bylaw officer was when we did have our roundtable discussion with the realtors, and Mr. Copan was present at that too, and I believe some of our councilors were. The main issue was put forward that a lot of the properties that are being up for sale, the comments are coming in, they're very disturbed with the unsightly premise. So echoing what you said, Councillor Hammond, puts it right there, because it's a shame for a city to look like that. So we need to do something about it, and again, Mr. Copan has done well up until now, but unfortunately there's only so many hours in a day. And Councillor Butler.
How many unsightly premises are we dealing with at the moment?
Right now, I've got about 6 on the books that I haven't even had a chance to address yet. I got 4 that I'm currently active with, and I've got 7 that we got cleaned up in the past year and a half.
So 10 right now.
So right now, there's about 10 of them that are active.
Is it safe to say that they grow?
Not really.
I mean,
No,
new ones coming up.
There are some new ones developing. They're not as severe as these, but these are actually, some of them are making progress, others are just pushing the envelope right to the limit.
Our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, this may only be a temporary venture for us. We may only have to do this for a couple of years while we can move some of the properties to get cleaned up, and then, it may subside for a couple of years, and we may come back again into council in the future to say, we're starting to see more complaints. I mean, the mayor and I were going through an email chain of probably 20 or 30 emails with one customer regarding, or one person in the community regarding one property that they were concerned with, and their dissatisfaction with the city not being able to attend to it. So.
Okay. As Mr. Allen stated, I run across those a lot. You may only have 10 unsightly premises to look at, but I've got about 20 people calling in, so.
Every day.
Exactly. So, if you're going to get bang for your buck as a taxpayer, you have to do something. Otherwise, as the story goes, if you're not going to enforce it, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Call the question.
Yes, we will now. All in favor? Thank you, Mr. Copan, for your time. So carried. Moving along.
Can I have my vote recorded, please?
Oh, it's my apologies. You opposed? Okay. Councillor Butler opposed. For our Manager of Development and Engineering Services, the subject matter is the development permit proposed highway commercial development, Lot 8, EL 520, SDYD, Plan KAP 83258, PID 026994-824 from Max FX Land Developers, property size 1.2 hectares, 2.77 acres. The recommendation is that council approves in principle and authorizes final sign-off by the approving officer of development permit 2016 DP MFX for a multi-building highway commercial development for a service station, a convenience store, and restaurant located within the general commercial development permit area on Lot 8, DL 520, SDYD, Plan KAP 83258, PID 026994-828. And we have Mr. Smith that is going to elaborate on this. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I got to hold my button.
Hello, okay. Mr. Mayor, you have before you a full report on the issue that's before you, which is an application for a development permit, and it encompasses, as mentioned, service station, restaurant, convenience store. The convenience store being 149 square meters, the restaurant 139 square meters, which, as mentioned, is now Tim Hortons. And the service station is Esso. And it has the gas pumps, it has landscaped area, and it has paving, which I'll show you in a minute on the drawing that's before you. And the recommendation is for the approval, as mentioned. Just to say that my role, I'm here as on a contract basis with Grand Forks. I've had over 30 years experience with 7 municipal governments across Western Canada largely. I've had actually a substantial amount of experience with development permits from Canadian Tires, on the highway commercial side, Canadian Tires, mall expansions, service stations, A&Ws, McDonald's, Tim Hortons. I've seen most of these things come before and dealt with these processes, so I hope that my assistance will be helpful to you. I've also had some experience overseas in some other countries who develop in slightly different ways, but we don't need to go into that. In Honduras, the Philippines, and Colombia recently. Anyways, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go over a PowerPoint, which I hope will highlight various facets of this and assist in making a decision here. Okay. So, development permits, this is a chart, and it shows that as the approval process goes, the SCP, Sustainable Community Development, is the major future development document, and it has designated this area as general commercial development permit area in your future planning. And then you have a zoning bylaw, and the zoning bylaw is your regulatory document with all the standards on where a building should be situated and how high it should be and so forth. And the rezoning is listed as highway commercial development. So now you're at the stage of the development permit. So just so that you're aware that you're not really not approving a highway commercial development here. It's already been spoken for in your planning documents, but it's about the conditions of approval, the layout of the building, the landscaping, and the access to from the site, etc. And the final phase after the development permit, of course, will be the building permit. And where you see public meeting below the development permit, that is tonight. It's not a public hearing, it's just part of the council meeting. That's the way how the process works. And under the approval process, we're at number 1 tonight of the development permit, where council will consider authorizing, having an authorization resolution passed. Second stage will be the approval of the Ministry of Transportation, and it's actually Transportation and Infrastructure, it used to be Highways, MOTI for short. And if this resolution passed, the application will be sent to MOTI, and they will review it, and they will either approve it or suggest a lot of changes or not approve it. That's how the process works. And then once it comes back to Grand Forks from MOTI, then the approving officer will issue it if everything is okay. So the development permit, it's been tied to a sales agreement. This is city-owned land, and it was discussed briefly at an earlier council meeting with a 60-day time frame to bring this forward, consider it both from the point of view of the developer who needs to have an answer on whether they can buy it or not, and from the district's point of view, they don't want staff and resources dragging on for years and years trying to consider this either. So it's for the benefit of both parties. The sales agreement was tied to an environmental assessment, which the developer was paying for and doing. I mentioned the MOTI approval, which is tied to it. Okay, the key issues in the development permit then are not the use of the property for highway commercial, but it's traffic access, off-street parking, lighting, landscaping, generally the site layout aspects, and that's on the site. And then with the building, we call it form and character, which is largely the colors, the materials, compatibility, that is how the building looks in relation to other buildings beside it, nearby, and the architectural detailing. So I guess, is there a way we can display that that you have there, Doug? So this is the information that the city asked the developer to provide, so we had a clear idea exactly what's going on that site. So the materials are pretty high quality. They're brick and they're hardy plank. The colors are subdued, which is good. The signs look in place and they're well placed on the building, so that aspect is good. And the roof line is sloped, which is better than the old style service stations with the flat roofs and the boxy look to them. So that part of it was good. So now I'll go over how the plan looks. This was the plan that we received, and some of the key areas again, as mentioned, traffic access, off-street parking, lighting, landscaping, and the form and character of the building, which is shown on those drawings passed out. And unfortunately, when you put it on transferred onto the screen, it's not as great as we like, but yes. Okay, here, thanks. So this is highway number 3. And you have the existing easement for a asphalt walkway here. And the access to the site would be on this side here, on the Cal Tire side. There's 2 vacant lots between it. And there would be a shared access here for future. Whoops, didn't need to do that. Okay, buttons are too close together here. So the shared access into the site would help these vacant sites, and it would also access into the proposal here. The tanks, which is a covered canopy, is here, and the buildings, as mentioned, this is a convenience store and the restaurant here. Your parking areas are some in front of the buildings and along the front here. There is sufficient parking as required by the zoning for the restaurant and the convenience store, and sufficient traffic movement here around the pumps, which is laid out in a best practices way that will work quite well. There's also a drive-through that goes around the building, as you have probably seen in other drive-throughs as well. Okay, I guess I'll go to the next one. This simply shows, it doesn't show as well as I would go again. It shows the traffic. There will be no traffic exiting onto 25th because of the children that go to school there. We made that very clear to the developer, and he would have preferred to have traffic coming in here, going to the pumps and going out in that direction, but we made it so that there would be an access road going right through the development to the back to 72nd, and would have to access from there. So safety was paramount for Grand Forks. The developer is prepared to put a paved asphalt walkway right along 25th, which will be good for any pedestrians, kids, bicycles going along that way. And there is a crosswalk here that quite a bit of dollars were spent. When it goes to MOTI, I understand that they may look at improving that crosswalk too, maybe putting a flashing light or something there, but we'll see how that comes out. And also, part of the city's bicycle network plan asks for a walkway along 72nd. So that will be happening in association with this development as well. Now here is the landscaping plan. We have a landscaping report. They will be putting $25,000 worth of planted landscaping into the site, and I believe they're actually going to take one of the better trees on the site and actually transplant it because they didn't want to destroy it. So they've gone to quite an effort, and we encourage them to do that to make the site look attractive and not ugly. And this describes, I guess you could say, the last week of the intensive discussions we had with them. Here I go again. So no access on the 25th, we removed that, so there'll be landscaping going in there, and the asphalt walkway, and the joint access, and the roadway exiting onto 72nd. So we're quite pleased that we're able to agree on those things. Sustainable development features. Council has talked about making sustainable development features with a little more teeth. In order to do that in the future, we could look at doing. I gotta quit doing that. Okay. Boy, that's a hair trailer. It's a good thing it's not loaded. Anyway, it would be good to consider looking at development permit areas that have green features in them. That gives you more teeth. Also, a sustainable development checklist. And these could be part of the Sustainable Community Plan is due for a 5-year review now, so I think it would be timely to look at maybe those kinds of things. Although there's not a lot of teeth to deal with a developer on those, such as thou shalt do, the developer in discussions is aware that Grand Forks would like to see a sustainable development as much as possible. So he has agreed to put LED lighting within the building and on the site, and that's a big energy saver for lighting. He's looking at bioswale, xeriscaping, water conservation type of landscaping on the site, and a lot of new businesses in that are developing that way, and it's good to see that they're using a technology that saves water and doesn't just drain into a storm sewer system. So that's quite well received. Also on the transportation side, there's a bicycle rack that will be provided to encourage cyclists to come to, the Tim Hortons or whatever. Construction of the sidewalk on 25th allows a connection to the bicycle and to 72nd. And there is shown on the map an electrical vehicle charging station on the right-hand side, although it wouldn't be put in initially. They want to gauge to see how much demand there would be for that. But they see it happening definitely in the future, but maybe not right away. The problem is with the charging stations is that it takes you know, a lot of time to charge, and you know, it kind of uses up space on the site unless you can do it in a very organized way. So last thing on development permits is that there will be an associated works and services agreement that would go along with this, and that would be before the final sign-off of the approving officer. And that would include such things as sewer, sanitary, storm, I guess the bioswale, storm sewer, the sanitary, water, street lighting and site lighting, fire hydrants, the walkway developments, and any gutters that are associated with developing curbs and that on the site, and the joint access. So that would all be into the works and services agreement. I would also indicate to you that there will be a construction work plan that would have to be worked out with the city, so that during construction there would be following the noise bylaw, dust control, and parking of construction vehicles, so it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood as much as it might otherwise. So as part of the implementation for the works and services and for the landscaping, there will be a requirement for securities to be provided by the developer to the district to make sure that things happen the way they should, and if they don't happen, then those securities would be cashed by the city, and the city would undertake to do those works so that it's guaranteed. So this is protection for the city that it's happening here. So that's my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and as mentioned, it is recommended for approval.
Do we have a picture of the building on the main screen? I think we do have a couple pictures on the main screen. Mr. Mayor, just I'm touching on a couple of the items. So what you'll see is the works and services agreement. The bonding they'll provide is not for on their property. It'll only be for off-site. They'll give us securities for that, except for the landscaping component. The site itself, the MOPI requirements, the reciprocal agreement that'll be put in place and registered on the title will allow for access for those other two properties that Mr. Smith pointed out. And the other piece that the city will have to deal with is they will be subject to latecomer, so they'll be entitled to claim if they have anything that would benefit an adjoining property. They would be able to claim latecomers within 15 years as per the legislation under the Local Government Act. So it's not for the cities to control that. We cannot deny it. We have no rights when it comes to that. We simply have to allow them to collect as they see fit. It would only be in the areas of services that would stand to benefit more people beyond that, and the only thing we would agree to at this point would be the access off the highway.
So may I have a motion, please? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Hammett, Councillor Ross, discussion.
Thank you very much, Conrad. I'm really excited about the possibility of having economic development happening in our city, and I know there's a lot of excitement out there about this development in the community. And I'm more concerned about the triple bottom line. I don't think it's been well enough considered here, and since I've occupied this chair, I've spoken about the SCP, our Sustainable Community Plan, and the fact that it doesn't have any teeth. I've also spoken about when business developments are initially proposed, that we could have a checklist so that potential development businesses that come to our town, they know that we have a really high standard. I'm not going to vote in favor of this simply because I believe by voting in favor of this development, I'm voting against my own values. Although I do support economic development, I'm excited about potential jobs that are coming here. I think we can do better, and I'm not voting for it because I think we need to have more teeth in our sustainable community plan. And also, I've spoken out on more than one occasion about the need for us to have a moratorium on any further drive-throughs in this town. I know that it's not always popular when I speak about that, but I think unless we really start to do something that's meaningful in terms of sustainability and in the environment, then we're just greenwashing to say that we have a sustainable community plan without any teeth in it. And when I read this, it says we should, and we need to replace that word should with must. I've done a little bit of research, and it didn't take me long, looking from coast to coast. Many jurisdictions right across Canada have put moratoriums on drive-throughs. I'm looking in Quebec, just in February of 2016, several small rural communities in Quebec, including Le Petit Patrie, Saint-Laurent, and the Plateau Montreal, and I also know for a fact that a small village there where my children live in Wakefield have a moratorium on drive-throughs. Several jurisdictions in Halifax and boroughs around Halifax do, and in and around Vancouver. So although I do welcome development, I am going to vote against this.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Hammond.
I agree with what Councillor Ross is saying, although I'm anxious to see this development go through. I'm looking forward to the economic development it's going to bring and the employment, and I think this is going to be a catalyst for other developers to be coming into our community. I think this is just the first stage of growth that we haven't seen for a very long time here. I'm going to vote for this project, and I think that we need to discuss our community plan and make those amendments for any future development. These ones will be grandfathered in, and we can prevent any future drive-throughs if that's what we choose to do in the revised community plan that we put together. But in the meantime, I hate to stop this project from going through because I think this is the start of the ball rolling for Grand Forks, and I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. It's going to encourage more development and more growth, and we need the jobs, and we need the economy, and we need the tax base. So I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond. You're absolutely correct. This could be the catalyst that we need. Councillor Butler, and then Councillor Thompson. Nope.
All right, speak loud, I guess. Yeah, I just want to commend Councillor Ross on having the courage to speak up for what she believes in. I know that can be difficult, and I know we don't want to offend our developers in any way that are coming in, because we do appreciate their business. And this is a pretty standard development for any city, but again, I can appreciate my values line up with yours, and I'd much rather see a locally grown, healthy, restaurant that promotes healthy living in our town. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people in town do want to see this type of development. It might not be what I want, but from what I hear out there in the community, I think people are excited about having this. So, it's always a challenge to make a gas station look pretty, and I think they've done a great job with their landscaping. I'm hoping that with the Xeriscape that they will have people weeding rather than using Roundup, because as Xeriscape gets old, weeds start to grow in it, and Roundup is usually the preferred choice that's quickest and easiest to use. So I hope that that won't be something that they do end up using. I like the idea of the sidewalks that they're putting in. I think that would be great if that can be worked into the development. And also the possibility of the light for the crosswalk for the school children going across to Hutton. Hopefully that can work in as well. one thing that I'd like to see in this development that I don't see right now is something that's unique to Grand Forks, that doesn't just make this another gas station in another town that looks the same as the gas station everywhere else. And I think it'd be wonderful if they could work with the museum or Heritage Society to get a heritage mural behind plexiglass or something on the west side of the building, something that's unique to Grand Forks, that just beautifies the building a bit more. And again, we do need to have a sustainable development checklist in place, and hopefully that's something we can work on over the summer. And to have more of a vision for this area of what we want to see. I really like our the main drag where we have all the big trees and the heritage houses, and I'd like to carry that theme further down the street so it doesn't just become you know, big box stores and gas stations and something very generic. I'd like to see something that's unique, that we're different. I think Nelson really stands out in that way, and hopefully we can move in that direction as we review our sustainable community plan next year. But yeah, I'd really like to thank the developers that are coming in for investing in our town. Hopefully it will be a catalyst in this area, and yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Maybe I just cut in before Councillor Thompson. I'd just like to say, as mayor, I'm a little disheartened with some council members that feel that they want to go on their personal preferences that have stated it goes against my personal views, because we are elected to represent our community, which is first and foremost in the forefront. And economic development is an absolute necessity here. We're not trading off our values. We're not selling our souls to the devil here. This is a good development, and I feel the taxpayers deserve it because it will help your tax bases. And if we just don't like our personal preferences because we don't like drive-throughs, we don't like the colors, I think we have to overlook that, and we can make those changes. But to so much as kick the new developers in the shins, we can't do that because it's been long, long overdue for Grand Forks to get some development. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting the resolution. The proposal and the development permit is all prepared in accordance with existing laws that we have, the existing SCP and the existing zoning bylaw. I also feel that this particular development complements the extra foods complex that's there. And I too echo other councillors' statements that this is good development for our city. There's been concern expressed by some that it's going to perhaps have a negative impact on some existing businesses in the downtown core. I don't believe that that's going to be an issue. I think those businesses already have their clientele, and they're not going to lose them. Unfortunately, for people who are traveling through Grand Forks, there really isn't anywhere for them to go for a cup of coffee or get something small to eat when they're traveling after 9 o'clock. And so this is going to be of benefit. And if people can stop and they can get a cup of coffee and a bowl of soup and a sandwich, it might encourage them to even drop into one of our motels and spend the night rather than driving through and going on to Castlebar or another area that does have the amenities that we're currently lacking. So I commend, and I'm excited and I'm thrilled that we're getting a complex such as this in our municipality, and it shows that we are moving forward. Thank you.
Councillor Grog.
Yeah, I had just, when I first looked at it, just a couple of concerns, mostly to do with existing residential, so the neighbors, right? And I think that can be addressed through the development permit, but to light it up like a football field, right, and disturb the neighbors and stuff. So I'd like to, make sure that we're trying to minimize any impact. And which we've already started with the no driving, no access on the 25th. And I think that, yeah, we can review our, I call it the OCP, if you want to call it the SCP, the new name. And if we're looking for heritage, then we can be drawing on already existing heritage. It's funny, people bring in timbers and rock, and they go, oh, timbers and rock, it's rural, it's like, maybe in Jasper, but we're more brick. We have a history of a brick plant. It would be nice to see it reflect what you see as you come into town, the heritage buildings. So using some of those colors rather than don't get me wrong, I love rock and timbers, right? But we could include some of those things to bring it back to more of our own heritage with brick. That's what
And if I may just add as a last note on this, and then we'll call the question. These developers have been very accommodating with our city. Very much so, as Mr. Smith has already reiterated earlier, where things have been brought forward, they were willing to accommodate. And I'm sure the smaller issues, like Councillor Krog has echoed, and probably other ones, should there be a need for it, I don't see any reason, because the amount of investment that this developer is bringing to Grand Forks, I don't think they're going to nickel and dime small issues. Councillor Hammett.
One last comment, I'd just like to say I really like the mountain they're putting in.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Ross?
You're looking my way for it.
I didn't see your hand.
Yes, she did, I saw.
Yeah,
Motion is carried.
My
microphone is broken. Okay, our next item is the subject matter is from the Manager of Development and Engineering Services. Subject matter, the THPSC Transitional Housing Project Steering Committee. And the recommendation is council dissolves the THP Transitional Housing Project Committee, and further that the Mayor's Office on behalf of council extends his appreciation to those members who were participants on the committee. And further, that the City of Grand Forks, through staff representatives, provides positive, appropriate support to BETS, the Boundary Emergency Transition Housing Society, in moving forward with planning to develop transitional housing for homeless individuals in Grand Forks. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, seconder. Councillor Ross. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We move on now to the information items. First subject matter is in regards to the Grand Forks and District Fall Fair. The requesting special occasion liquor license for second annual Shuck and Chuck Gala. Shuck and Cluck, pardon me. Gala. Shuck sounds better. Saturday, June the 18th, 2016 at Dick Bartlett Park. The recommendation is that council approves the issuing of a special occasion liquor license to the Grand Forks District Fall Fair Society for the Shuck and, let's get it right this time, Cluck event on June the 18th at Dick Bartlett Park, subject to Grand Forks and District Fall Fair obtaining third-party alcohol liability insurance, naming the City of Grand Forks as an additional, we need Foster Brooks here now, for an additional insurance on the policy. All Grand Forks and District Fall Fair liquor providers to hold a serving it right license certificate and ICBC drinking and driving warning poster to be displayed. So, may I have a mover, please? Councillor Hammett, a second. Councillor Thompson. Unless there's any more discussion. All in favor? So carried.
Did you see Foster Brooks on Jack Park?
Yeah, I did. The next subject matter is the school district number 51 boundary, and the subject matter is the Walker Development Center alternate learning site, an opportunity to participate in the establishment of a scholarship program. The recommendation is council receives for discussion and decision to participate in the establishment scholarship program within the Walker Development Center alternate learning site. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Butler, a second, Councillor Hammond. All in favor? Discussion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Butler first, and Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, we're asked to provide a decision on this, so I imagine we need to decide how much the scholarship is going to be for. It's my understanding that we donate 2 $500 scholarships for the high school, so I'm just wondering if $500 amount would be fair and appropriate for this.
Councillor Hammond first, and Councillor Crowe.
So we have 2 scholarships now that we provide to School District 51. Is that
Yeah.
exclusive to GFSS? Or can Walker Development be included? Or are they looking to have their own? Like, are we looking at doing 3, or are we just looking at expanding it into Walker?
We're looking at adding it first.
Adding another one? I would still prefer to call it a bursary for $500, I think. I think $500 to call it a scholarship is.
I think this was discussed earlier that we're probably proposing next year to increase the scholarships possibility because it is a small amount to be called a scholarship, I agree. So that's something that can be looked at. Councillor Crog.
I don't believe in scholarships.
I knew that was coming.
You never went to school.
Because I never went to school, so I never got one. Yeah, when I first looked at it, it's like, if we're providing, whatever you want to call it, to School District 51, this is School District 51. So if they want to exclude part of their thing, right? So I would say if you want to do it, and especially if you're thinking you're going to raise it next year, then you can put one here and one at GFSS. Keep in mind that the taxpayers of this city, if you've seen your tax bill, mine's here somewhere, and it was in my pocket, and you see the school district or the taxation for schools, right? So they already pay. They
Are they sure?
I did.
You did.
But now I moved it.
Oh, okay.
So, for us to take that money to give to something that people are already being taxed for, has never made sense to me, so, that's it.
Yeah.
Councillor Thompson.
The taxes, school taxes go to run and operate the schools.
Correct.
Okay, the scholarships or bursaries, whatever you want to call them, benefit the students.
Right.
And so, you know, I think we need to think carefully about that. Traditionally, the 2 scholarships have always gone to Grand Brook Secondary. This is the first time that Walker Development Schools have been is approached. Not just the city, but other organizations as well for consideration for a scholarship or a bursary.
Councillor Crog.
Pick the hill you want to die on. This is not it. Okay, so, yes, the money goes to operate the school. And a bursary or a scholarship, as you said it, aids a student. A student. One person. So the taxpayers help run the school, and then we're going to tax them to give the money to one student. And it's, that was cute.
If I may log in on this one, but if you look at the city's point of view, for the amount of organizations that we fund also from taxpayers' dollars, and some of those organizations give bigger grants and bigger amounts to the same students, then it's kind of shameful if the city cannot do that.
Then we shouldn't be funding those groups.
Oh.
We'll work on that one yet, that's coming up.
Forget it, it's fine, I'm not gonna go there.
Councillor Butler.
We just spent $28,000 to tell people to quit watering their lawns and clean up their properties. I think we can give $500 to a kid in Walker Development Center to help educate him so that he doesn't become delinquent in cleaning up his property.
Or we could hire him to do the good
Make
faith
a
work.
word for it.
We already
All right,
spent.
so I'm gonna call the question on this. No,
Wait, we don't have a motion.
Okay, so I'll make a motion
to receive.
Do we have one? Or we do have a motion?
to receive it and refer it to the budget
We have a motion on the table to receive for discussion and decision.
To
Okay,
participate.
so there's no motion on a decision, or there's no decision
We
yet.
have to vote on
Only
the
to
first motion
participate in
before-
the establishment of a scholarship program. So we don't have, we're talking monetary amounts. If I read this motion or recommendation properly, we are only at the stage of discussion and decision to participate in the establishment of a scholarship program. There is no monetary amounts that we haven't decided that. We're just doing the first stage of this.
Right.
So if I read this correctly, and unless I'm incorrect, that's all we're doing, is to participate in the establishment of a scholarship program. And at that point, then we can discuss the monetary amounts in that scholarship program and how it's going to play out. So may I have a mover on that, please?
We've already
We
got
do,
it.
so do it. Now, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Krog is opposed. The motion has carried. So we move along. I think some of us do want to go home tonight. Now, Peter Matheson and the Learning Garden Team. Subject matter is request for support regarding the Xeriscape Landscaping Contest development through the Learning Garden. And the recommendation here is to determine to support the request from Peter Matheson and the Learning Garden Team to support the Xeriscape Landscape Contest. And further, that council determines to contribute a prize to one winner of the contest. May I have a mover on that before we discuss this?
I'll make a motion.
Councillor Thompson, do I have a seconder? Councillor Ross? I guess now we can go in discussion. What would be the prize? The sprinkler?
Yeah, timer, no. A rain gauge.
Okay, Councillor Butler, you can lead off.
Yeah, I saw, originally they had a design for the Learning Garden, which looked quite good, so I'm not really sure why they need a new design now from someone from the public. And I'm not sure whereabouts in the Learning Garden it would be located, if it was all of it, just a part of it. On the other hand, we have a lot of really talented creative gardeners in this town, and a lot of older people that have been gardening for years and years who I think would love to pass on their talents to the next generation and help support younger people in this community to help them learn how to garden. So I think this could be a really positive way to involve the community in the Learning Garden and create some excitement around it. I'm not in favor of donating a pile of money though.
Well, as I read the motion again, we're just determining to contribute a prize. We're not really issuing a prize at this point yet, and it's a twofold recommendation, which is we support the landscape contest. So if we don't support the contest, then obviously there'll be no prize. Councillor Cluck, and Councillor Hammond, and I believe Councillor
Okay,
Ross. Did you have-
just, when I read it, my understanding was it's not gonna be at the Learning Garden, this is for people and their property.
It's a
Right.
contest for public.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
public to do their yards,
Exactly.
and then photographs, and then
Yeah.
judging
Yeah.
takes place. So it's kind of the opposite of Community in Blooms, or Community in Blooms. No, it's positive, right? And we can give them some money, we'll just call it a bursary.
Councillor Hammett was next.
To our CAO.
Point of
Mr.
order, I
Allen.
believe Councillor Hammett.
Yes,
was next.
are you?
I was just
responding?
clarifying that it is for the public
Public,
to
yeah.
enter, but yeah, we could get some pet rocks.
Somebody bring a container of laughing gas. To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, I've seen other communities have, as part of their community awards, they use they hand out a water conservation award. They recognize community members for their efforts to reduce their water consumption, and I've seen this as an example of how they do it. Some of the gardens that I've seen in respect to that are quite elaborate, that reflect the ability to conserve water with using the different species of plants. They're not as engaged with the rock product as you see here, but they are quite extensive. So another consideration for council to consider it as part of their annual awards that they would hand out. And it
Which
would
could
be-
possibly set a precedent then in the community.
And it would be something you would do
Yeah.
annually.
Yeah. Councillor Ross, my apologies.
Yeah, that's great. I like the idea of we have a lot of amazing gardeners in this community, and I think some of them are sitting here tonight. Councillor Butler's talked about xeriscaping and they use for rocks. Sometimes I'm concerned about it because some of those rocks are river rocks, and so sometimes I'm a little bit concerned about that. And also the fact that unless you're putting down landscape cloth or weed retention cloth, that sometimes weeds come up, and some people do this and then they use a lot of chemicals to keep the weeds out of it. I would like to see it expanded to bioswaling, not just xeriscaping. There's lots of ways that we can retain and create wonderful landscaping in our community without just xeriscaping. But I think it's a great idea, and I'm definitely going to support it. Maybe asking Mr. Matheson if you consider xeriscaping and other environmentally friendly landscaping methodologies.
Yes, we should give thanks for Mr. Matheson to bring this forward, and as another concept to rocks, we could use bricks to maintain the heritage.
But bioswaling is a really good idea.
I thought we were against whaling.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving along to the Canada Day Committee. The subject matter is the invitation for July the 1st, City Park participation in the Canada Day ceremonies. And the recommendation is council to discuss parade participation, cake serving, and mayor advises on emceeing and entertainment co-chair. That was a mouthful. May I have a motion? Councillor Ross and Councillor Hammett, discussion? All in favor? So carried. And yes, I have advised that I will be doing that. MC and whatever else. In the bylaws section, from our Chief Financial Officer, the subject matter is the 2016 Water Rates Amendment, and the recommendation is council gives the first three readings to Bylaw 1973-82, Water Regulation Amendment 2016. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Thompson, a seconder. Councillor Crogg. Discussion, Councillor Butler.
So just to clarify, the only change in this bylaw is the costs at the bottom of Schedule A. I'm just wondering why the page before that was included, if there's any changes in that one as well? Because I don't think, we didn't have a copy of the previous bylaw, so it's hard to tell if there were any changes.
To our CFO.
Thank you, Your Worship. There were no other changes than the chart with the prices in it.
Thank you. All in favor?
I just have to comment again.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I have to vote against this bylaw because bylaw 1973 I've never been in favor of right from the beginning. Everybody knows that. We don't need to talk about water meters, so just on principle I'll have to vote against it because of the other part that's included, which requires water meters.
Thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Councillor Butler. Motion is carried. Moving again to our Chief Financial Officer, and the subject matter is the 2016 Wastewater Rates Amendment. Recommendation council gives first three readings to Bylaw 1974-A1, Sewer Regulation Amendment 2016, and further that council amends the 2016 financial plan to reduce the 2016 wastewater transfer to capital reserve from $72,500 to $30,000 to be funded from surplus. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, a seconder. Councillor Crogg. If there's no discussion, all in favor? One opposed. So carried. In our late items, as I had mentioned with the amended agenda, we have a late item included from our CFO with regards to the financial plan update. Ms. Shepherd.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just touch on that. Chief Financial Officer provided me an update on the current financial situation of the municipality. The document that she prepared is, she's just going to open it up here. You get the other one over there? Or actually, no, this one's fine. Actually, let's start with the other one. Okay, Mr. Mayor, in this, when we started back on the financial plan, and we said, yeah, can we make this a little larger? Rob? Can make this bigger, please. So when we initially started onto our financial road to sustainability, we were making some decisions, and council had to make some tough decisions around taxation increases. Council had to look at many different things that related to policy regarding asset management. And what happened was, council made a decision through recommendation from staff to fund our liabilities, and we needed to fund about $3.85 million a year. In order to fund $3.85 million a year, it was going to be insurmountable for our community. So council made the decision to fund it to 50%. Currently, and 50% is $1.9 million a year to go into asset renewal because of the assets that we have in place that we have to replace. We've seen the asset management demonstrations in our community. So we needed about $970,000 a year. What we were putting away was $240,000 a year, and we had a taxation increase this year that people thought was, it affected different people differently based on their assessments. We were running a shortfall. What we were able to do is, after we finished our audit this year, we found that we had a surplus of $577,000 based on our fiscal responsibility, the cutbacks that our organization had done this year. So what that means to the community is we were reducing our overall shortfall we were at $380,000 overall that we were short. We need to have $1.9 million. And what we found this year with all of our savings, we were able to come up and be only $380,000 short. We're going to ask council to consider putting the slag fund money annually into the infrastructure renewal fund, which will leave council an overall shortfall of $84,000. We had a 3-year plan to get to this point, and what's happened is, if we can maintain this surplus, our position is going to be way stronger as a community. We've almost balanced the budget, so to speak. So it's a great news story for the community, and the reality for us right now is, as we move forward, we're only $84,000 short, and if we see the developments that we've seen as a result of tonight, that will help close that gap. And closing that gap is one of the most important things for our community, because, Mr. Mayor, the biggest gap was we only had $46,000 in our reserve fund for infrastructure renewal. Now we're going to have $1.9 million a year, which will allow us to start to replace the infrastructure, the roads. And council will see the plan coming out in the very short, in the next month and a half or so, the 20-year plan, which will lay out the works that will happen over the next 20 years with this $1.9 million going in every year. That will be a snapshot into the future, so we'll see which roads will be paved, when they'll be paved, and we'll see which water infrastructure will get taken care of, which sewer infrastructure will get taken care of with the years attached to it. That being said, there may be some changes, just depends on any sort of catastrophic impacts to the water or sewer system, but the reality is we've closed that gap and the community is a lot further ahead than we were in the past. So that's the great news story. Mr. Mayor, and our Chief Financial Officer has done a great job of putting this together. So really the tough decision for council now is going to be asking, do they want this $235 to go into that infrastructure renewal to leave them only $84,000 short, which is essentially a really easy hill to get over. So that's the intent of the memo tonight, and just to give the community an update that we are in a very strong position now.
Councillor Thompson.
Just to comment on that, the slag fund has been used over the years to fund many different capital projects, including roads and streets, downtown revitalization, the library, and a number of other issues. And so I don't have an issue with dedicating the slag funds into the capital reserves.
Councillor Ross.
I think the slag pile is a significant piece of Grand Forks history, and it's a visible piece of our landscape. And it's almost like a legacy fund. I really don't like to see that that line item brought to zero. I'd like to see the money stay in the slag fund so we know how much money is in there, and then when need be, we designate a specific amount of money out of the slag fund for specific projects so that it's more visible, it's just not going into what I consider is a general revenue. It should stay as a line item with the amount of money that it's earned in that column.
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Ross. I know this year it was put into, I think, reserves, and it gets lost The community doesn't see the value that they're getting from having this amazing revenue source that a lot of communities aren't privileged enough to have. So I do like to see that we have a concrete project come out of that, that the people can see where their money has gone. And you know, it might be valuable. I mean, yeah, we need to renew the pipes, we need to do these other projects, but a lot of that money can get spent on consulting firms and different paperwork items that you don't see that concrete project at the end. Even though it is part of the project, I'd like to see it all used for the actual construction value of the project.
I understand the concerns, and I guess this could be an item that could be open for more discussion amongst council. We're not having a resolution this evening based on it to do this move, so this is only an option. Councillor Hammond.
I understand, and it would be nice to have it as a legacy fund and keep it as a legacy fund. I understand that there is some money still in that reserve. What the plan is that next year's 235,000, or this year's 200, because that's how much we get in there every year, be transferred into the general revenue, not operating costs, but the general revenue. But I think the community is seeing the benefit of that slag fund, because as we did see a tax increase this year that hit us all in the pocket pretty hard, it would have been substantially higher if we hadn't used the money from the slag fund. So I think they are seeing the benefit of it. It's just being shown in a different way.
Councillor Cluck.
Yeah, just a point, unless I misheard. The money's not going to general revenue. The money would go into a reserve fund.
Right.
So, yeah, it goes from that named reserve fund to another reserve fund, but it's the same thing.
Which gets used for what? Which gets used for what?
For infrastructure or whatever else.
General.
But not general revenue. General revenue.
Could go to general capital, electrical capital, water capital, sewer capital. It's not necessarily
Building.
cost.
It's not dedicated to any
No.
particular issue.
That's why
It's separate.
Just to that, there's a capital balances, capital reserve balances. So just give council an idea of what was in that reserve fund that was dispersed in there. This year we had, where's the slag reserve, we had, what was the balance? At the beginning of 2016, we had an opening year balance of 1.3.
214.
Sorry,
Oh, there we go.
215, we had an opening balance of $1.3 million in the slag reserve. So for council's information, just to know how much was in there, because that question was asked.
And it got transferred to?
It's transferred now into a budget, a bylaw reserve fund that is controlled by bylaw. So council set that, so council can only approve by bylaw that money being expended. It won't go into being expended in any other way. It'll be at council's peril to determine where the money goes.
Okay, so may I have a motion to receive the update of the financial plan? Councillor Hammond, Councillor Ross. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Through you to a CEO, would it be possible, and I don't want to create more work for our CFO, to have a report on the projects that the slag fund has already financed since its inception? I know when I was treasurer, I had a report going, and I don't know if our CFO is.
I think it's already on first class.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have that, and we can have it available. Should council want to ask that for the, to bring to the next meeting, I can bring it forward in our staff report.
Thank you. Okay, now we move on to the subject of questions from the public and the media. And again, as I say every week or every second week, may I caution the public that the subject matters must pertain to the items on the agenda this evening, otherwise your questions will not be recognized. So if I have any questions, the gentleman in front.
Derek McDonough, Juice FM. I was just wondering when the last time economic development happened. Like you said, it was been a while since something like the proposed, or the gas station's been approved, when the last time something like that was built? in
You moved in?
So, the station, basically.
I don't know, I would say just put the time of Plymouth Rock.
So long.
No, I'm just being sarcastic. It's,
Everything from
Well-
Yeah.
Silver Kettle.
yeah, Silver Kettle and further back. I mean, it's before my time, but there was extra foods and,
We had Jenna-
but it's been
Like a decade, or?
a decade. Again, I wish I knew the answer to that,
What
but
scale?
Well, large economic development.
no, there hasn't been over here 8 years now, so
Okay.
I haven't seen anything in my timelines.
Okay.
It's big news for Grand Forks for sure, no doubt. And it has been an issue that's been requested by citizens for a long time. I guess everybody loves their coffee.
Well, some citizens, not all.
Not all citizens, I agree. Some still like tea. Councillor Hammond.
I think Extra Foods was completed in January 2014 or December 2013, so it's. Extra Foods. Or sorry, 2003. Sorry, December 2003.
I must have really been sleeping.
So,
The gentleman in the back.
I would suggest maybe the answer would be when Interfor bought the mill that Pope and Talbot had abandoned, so.
Yeah, that's probably good. Yeah, that's probably good timelines. Any other questions or the lady in the front?
Yes, Your Worship. Kate Sailors, the Grand Forks Gazette. I just had a question regarding the Ministry of Transportation approvals process. How long does that take?
That's anybody's question, but
So, Mr. Mayor, we've started the process with the Ministry of Transportation about 6 weeks ago to let them know that we would like to have a meeting with them. We've made sure that we've set the timelines that we're working within. So we've had the conversations with them, and we're expecting now the developer to bring forward the design so we can bring forward the design criteria. They'll also ask for a couple other things that'll have to be submitted, so it'll be based on the extent of the information that the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure asked for. So that could go into traffic impact studies, it could go into other studies that they would look at, but essentially we're hoping that we can work out a terms of reference here and have it to them in the coming weeks.
the gentleman in the front.
When's the shovel going in the ground?
Okay, can I have your name, please, for the record?
Brian Thie.
Okay.
They indicated to us, the developers indicated to us that they would like to have it completed before the snow flies because they want to have their paving done this year. They're anticipating an aggressive work schedule. They want to be, they wanted to have this thing complete pretty quick. Their 60-day timeline was requested upon our council through the sale of this, and we're holding them to that. They've exceeded that timeline by approximately 20 days. So they're aggressive in moving it forward.
Any other questions?
Maybe the mayor could tell us, what was that fall fair event again? Could you tell us?
I was waiting for someone to talk about that.
Chuckabut.
yeah.
To the lady in the front row.
Gloria Cook. I was trying or following along on this late item sheet regarding the last item with the slide fund and spending and the like on that. But your figures in this picture here started out, I think, about the same but finished differently. So I'm wondering if we can have access to a copy of what you had up there, please. Both screens at least, or whatever you had to complete, so we can follow that along, please.
Okay.
So it's accurate.
Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as part of that, I asked and absolutely, the only thing you're seeing up there is the solutions. We showed you the problem. That was the solution, so we had the solution on the screen tonight to demonstrate to the public that there was an option. So we didn't have the slag fund and the $84,000 that was outstanding as a result of that. That was just one option. So we can, yes, we can have that. That's only one option. That's not even an approved option to council, it's just something we show the council.
And as always, we try to show solutions and not problems. Any other questions?
Thank you.
And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Ross, Councillor Crog, all in favor? This meeting's adjourned.